So if you're talking about a bolus dose, yes, the level falls very quickly because of distribution and redistribution. If you're talking about an infusion, then the elimination phase plays a bigger role.
So if you're when you're talking about bolus dose, would you consider 25 milligrams over 3 to 5 minutes? Would you call that a bolus, or would you call that an infusion?
I would call that a very slow bolus.
And in doing a slow bolus, the effects of that bolus become readily apparent to the person giving that a bolus very quickly?
More or less by the end of the infusion.
And in the event that the person is okay after the administration of that bolus, there's no reason to believe that propofol would cause any further effects?
No, there isn't.
Okay, you were shown an IV line. I think it's Defense WW on it. Did I take that out of the bag?
Yes, it should be marked on the outside of the bag.
Can I approach the witness?
Is it WW?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. Sure.
Show you this IV line that was shown earlier. Is that different than what it normally would be?
Yeah, the tab that covers the venting port has been torn off or cut off.
You have another IV line, the same variety?
Exactly. And you can easily see that the tab here is, and it's fairly well attached, so it would have taken a rather vigorous effort to tear it off, or more likely.
So that tab can be bent around?
It looks like it's cut, actually.
So should I put that on the overhead to show the difference in the one that's...
Do you have a completely new exhibit?
This is totally new exhibit. I guess that's...
It's the same tubing, Your Honor.
No, I understand. I'm asking counsel. So you've made reference to WW. Do you want another exhibit for
Yes.
demonstrative purposes? Quadruple whiskey.
Okay, that's quadruple W.
Yes.
And I'm going to mark that on the outside of the...
I thought we were up to Victor.
Oh, wait.
No?
Oh, we've been talking about VVV.
We had quadruple Victor for quite a while, I think. I'm no good at anything other than phonetic alphabet. I left off at quadruple Victor. Is there a quadruple whiskey? He asked the jurors. They agree with me for a change. But nobody else around here does. So let's just check for a moment. Did we have four W's?
Check the exhibit box.
Well, let's check.
It should be the very last page in the exhibit box for the defendant.
Mrs. Theodoro shows it. I'm going to defer to the jurors. I think.
Can we take a vote?
No, let's just take a moment. Do we have a quadruple W? All right, right now, rather than wait any longer, we're going to call it quadruple W, and if we have to change it, we will, with my apologies, ladies and gentlemen. So this is 4W.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
quadruple W. I'm going to show this is, would you call this the spike portion?
Yes, I would. The part that goes into the IV bag or into the cork on the ampule of propofol.
And that's a little plastic cap that goes over that. What's the device called that it appears?
It's called
as
a
though
venting port, I think.
It's a venting port,
Yes.
and to unvent it, you just attach it like this.
Yeah.
It's and on this other.
And for the record, it's quadruple W.
The other one is double W. We've got that venting port, but it doesn't appear to have a cap on it. Appears to be either cut or, Doctor?
It appears that way to me. I've never seen it before, and I never attempted to actually tear it myself, so I don't know what's required to tear it, but it looks like it could have been cut with scissors, I guess.
I believe you were asked whether or not you broke it or altered it to confuse Dr. Schaefer?
I've never seen it before, and furthermore, I would never attempt to do anything devious like that.
And turnoffs replacing WW?
Yes, and no.
Turnoffs replacing quadruple W. Go figure the odds of that, ladies and gentlemen.
Would that tab make a difference in how you would operate that IV line?
Not really. The venting just allows liquid to come out of a fixed ampule, like a glass ampule, or out of a bag. Having it open allows the drip to go much faster. You still have the control because you have the little screw knob at the bottom, and you also have a clamp if you want to just completely stop it. So I don't understand why anyone would remove it. It just doesn't make sense.
Does the removal of that tab have anything to do with how the IV line would work?
No.
And would it function with that tab out?
Yes.
And do you know how it could have got the tab removed?
Indicated he's never seen it before.
Sustained, call it speculation.
Now, let's assume that Dr. Murray did use this to administer propofol, or something similar to this, to administer propofol on June 25th.
Quadruple W?
Double W. Two W's.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure which one.
Or a line. They're both the same. They're basically identical. And would it be easy to conceal?
You're asking me if he had used that to drip in the propofol from the bottle?
Yes.
Well, as you're showing in your hand, I guess perhaps the DA has a stronger hand, he can crunch it up better, but it would have propofol in it, presumably if it's dripping propofol. So if you did pull it out of the bottle and stuff it in your pocket, you'd probably have a pretty messy pocket.
It would be wet?
Yeah, the liquid would be all the way from the drip chamber to the end of the tubing.
But it would be easier to conceal than the IV bag that was used to drip the propofol, wouldn't it?
It'd be kind of hard to roll that bag up. Again, if you rolled it up that way, you would have liquid going in a lot of places.
And if you wanted to conceal this, you'd probably also want to conceal the bottle, wouldn't you?
Objection, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Now, you were asked about, I'm going to put this back in WW.
Thank you.
You were asked about reports and transcripts that you've read regarding your suspicion that there could be oral propofol used in this case. The testimony that you read, was it previously from the prosecution's experts that testified at the preliminary hearing, Dr. Ruffalo and Dr. Rogers, who's testified in this case?
Objection improper. Witnesses were answering questions of Mr. Flanagan.
Overruled. Mr. Flanagan's inquiring as the basis for Dr. White's opinions.
Yes, that did have an impact on my decision to include that in my preliminary letter to you.
And in that line of questioning asked of those witnesses, you recall the questions asked about how the blood was 8 parts propofol to 1 part of lidocaine, and how the stomach contents were 1 part of propofol to 12 parts of lidocaine. You recall that hypothetical being given to those experts?
I don't recall the actual detail, but I do recall some differences in ratios that raise the issue of perhaps that's a possibility.
And did both of those experts indicate that that did give rise to the possibility of oral propofol being taken?
Objection. This states the testimony. Relevance.
Overruled.
I did think, again, you're asking me to recall something from February, that they testified that possibly indicated the possibility. That's all I remember, was just the possibility of propofol oral ingestion.
Now, after you'd received those transcripts from me, along with some other reports, I believe the autopsy report, toxicology reports, and what's it, about 13, 14 expert reports that had been previously retained by the prosecution. You recall that?
I recall receiving a lot of reports by experts on behalf of the prosecution, yes.
And I'd asked you if you'd be willing to evaluate this evidence and this information to render an opinion in this case.
Yes, you did, and I told you that I was very busy with other projects, so I had a limited time, and I would do my best to provide you with a quick opinion.
Now, in between providing you this information and you writing an opinion, did you have a conversation where Mr. Walgren asked to consult with you?
Again, from my memory, and I haven't checked my emails, I think Mr. Walgren sent me an email, as I recall initially, and I forget the nature of the exact email, but I think it was something to the effect, would you be willing to discuss this case? I don't want to, I haven't read the email in since February, I guess, and I did give my phone number and said I'd be happy to chat over the phone.
Did he then call you at your home?
He did call me at my home, yes.
Did you tell him at that point in time that you had already been consulted by the defense and that you were investigating this case on our behalf?
I think what I said was that I had been contacted by you on behalf of the defense and that I hadn't made a commitment to be an expert for the defense because I was still in the process of gathering information, and that I'd be happy to chat with him at a later time, something to that effect. It was a short conversation, short, pleasant, and that was sort of the end of my contact with Mr. Walgren.
Well, did Mr. Walgren ask you why you were investigating this on behalf of the defense?
He didn't really ask. He made curious